jump right into it. But, you know, there is no, I'm not like the majority who are seeking a wide audience, or these things are not my focus. My focus is not similar. And perhaps as we move along, that becomes very clear. There's our current disposition and where we are today. Its creation was actually quite elementary. It was quite simple, what has been done. And it has not simply been done to us, but it's been done to everyone that comes into this nation and beyond, right? And the way that it happened, the way that this worked, again, it was very elementary. It was very simple. What was done was innocent human beings were restricted from controlling any element of their existence. So they took people, or they found people that were here on this continent, or they took them from Africa. And what they did was they removed their ability to do for themselves. So those people that were here on this continent, they were very skilled. In fact, they were more skilled than the colonizer. The colonizer couldn't survive. They didn't know what to grow. They didn't know how to grow. They didn't know how to store any of these things. So the native on this continent was very skilled in perpetuating themselves and being responsible for their own lives to the next 72 hours. Very skilled. And the African that they took was exceedingly skilled at providing for themselves into tomorrow. And so what they did was they took them from where they were used to, and they placed them in a tiny little box where they couldn't move, right? And they removed from them the control and responsibility associated with providing themselves the necessities for them to survive within the next 72 hours, okay? And they did this generationally, okay? The end result was anything that the person who held them in this state gave them seemed like a come up, right? So if I restrict from you your ability to control when you can get water, when you can have food, if I control these things, if I give you a glass of water, after I've withheld it from you, you'll begin to think of me as your savior and as your friend. And so I give you some food and I give you some care, and it sends mixed messages, right? And so the individual who has had those things controlled for them and then withheld from them, when they're given to them, they think it's a bonus. They think it is a measure of mutual humanity and consideration. They don't realize that this is a control measure. This is what has us where we are today. Because now, based on having done that, you've already twisted the human mind. You have already twisted the human mind through the essential needs, right? And so now what happens is you can begin to introduce a new value system to those people that are caught in the dynamic, right? If you know already and it is established and in your mind, it is a given fact, like the mouse in the maze, it's a given fact that your source for water, for food, for essential needs is someone else. You've already been put into this maze. And this is how you achieve those things and have those things. What can happen is at that point, they can introduce different elements of a value system. It doesn't even have to be a value system. Do you know how gangs began? Gangs began. Well, so first, initially, it was the spook hunters, right, in California. The spook hunters were a group of white people that would terrorize Black folk, women and children that were doing their daily thing. And then the alternative to that was gangs that came to defend them. But the way that they became dangerous to us is that you had an outsider who looked at two gangs that had beef for whatever the reason. And that outsider then went to one of those gangs and said, yo, could you use these guns? Hmm? Can you use these drugs? Will this help you? Can we take a piece of that? And so they produced a greater level of enmity between those two gangs by giving one more than the other. And this is true in many different case studies. If you take and isolate individuals and you beat them, you take their names, you decide when to feed them, you decide to give them water when, you decide every element of their existence. And then suddenly you show favor to one or the other. It's simple. This isn't rocket science. This is what has happened, right? The individual will then begin to resent the one that's getting more, and the one that's getting more will begin to feel themselves and flaunt that. Given enough time in that condition, if you were to give one or the other a gun, they would not point it against the person that held them in this condition. They would point it against the one that they feel is the one that's been treated better. Simple. This is how they did the gangs. This is how they have done us over time. And so they introduce a value system. It doesn't even have to be a thing of value or of any true benefit to you. It can be guns, right? It can be drugs. It can be all of these things. But at the end of it, what exists is the desire to have something that you do not have. And what they have done is, so after they did what they did with Africans, right, with innocent humans, either indigenous or African, after they did what they did, they then invited others to come into this nation and enjoy a share of the spoils produced in the innocent wombs of little girls for centuries, right? So they invited everyone in for a share of the opportunity, of the prosperity, and what had been produced through what they did. So each of these people were very pleased to come in. They were excited. This was far better than what they had in their home. They were escaping something in their own lands. So it was far better what it was that was being offered in this new land. So they all came willingly, and they all, to this day, will say how great this was, because again, this was their rescuer. Okay, this rescued them from a condition. And so when they got here, they were very malleable, which means that anything that this nation who had just saved them from their misery suggested or told them was the norm, they would comply. They would do whatever this nation said they should in order to be able to enjoy the opportunity and the prosperity, to the extent that they would change their names, they would change their hair colors, they would do absolutely anything for America to allow them in, for them to take advantage of the prosperity and the opportunity. So for them, the value system, they didn't have to be broken, right? What America learned and what this nation learned was how to sell the slavery as freedom, right? How to sell slavery as freedom. So the people coming in voluntarily didn't have to be broken the way they broke the innocent African and indigenous people on this land. They didn't have to be broken that way. With those people, for centuries, what they did was they restricted their control of their own essential needs and their ability to controlled their lives into the next 72 hours. And so again, anything that they gave them, any little glass of water, any bit of food, anything that they gave them was looked as a plus. And again, the people got starry eyes. Wow, he gave me more water. He gave me more food. He's given me these things. And so they become a hero based on what they had suppressed, right? But for those people that came into the nation after, the Irish, the Lithuanian, the Hungarian, the Italian, all of those people, the Portuguese, the German, the Eastern European, for those people, they did not have to be broken in order to subscribe to the value system that they put in place without question. Again, they were escaping misery, death, and difficulty in their own land. So when they arrived here, man, they were open. We'll do whatever you say. We will overlook the screams of those innocent people that you're using to produce your prosperity. We'll overlook everything. We'll change our names. We'll change our hair. We'll do all of that. So they didn't have to break them in order to do it. But they did to our families, to our generations, right? They did, in fact, implement just terrible means of making a human being completely dependent and subservient on another and incapable of defining the instruments of their own oppression. They forgot. They forgot how that happened. They forgot that when they came from Africa, they were the best agricultural scientists in the world. They forgot that while they were on this nation and indigenous, they were the best agricultural scientists that this continent had ever seen. They were able to continue their line for centuries, for thousands of years before the colonists came in. So this was the people that were rooted in their own existence. They were rooted in controlling their own existence. They knew the skill with which a native tribe could set down roots, set up homes and teepees, produce food, hunt food, and move. That entire operation was more precise than any military operation in the world. They could move hundreds and thousands of people in an instant. These people knew how to survive into the next day, and they removed that ability in a generational manner. It was elementary. I'm telling you, this was very elementary. Simply control the essential needs of these people, and you now own them. So what happens? What is the result or the practical application to this in 2021? The practical application is that your preacher, your leader, your politician, your talker, your social media star, your celebrity are all referencing and accessing an exploitation that was put in you by way of the colonizer 400 years ago. Each one of them are referencing a value system that you have that has been installed, and they're exploiting it. So, and I'm, again, it is a dynamic that 100% of us were born into. So I'm not really criticizing my own. I'm not denigrating because we've fallen into it. We all have. We were born into it. So was your parents and their parents and their parents. It would be impossible for any of us to stand here today and say we were not impacted by what happened. No, all of us are. But what is the impact? The impact is that your leaders and talkers and preachers and pastors and social media giants and celebrities are all referencing a value system that does not maintain your interest or consider your humanity. All it does is reference the base programming that was put within you centuries ago. So how do they get you? You know, how do these people get you? They show you pictures and videos and images of things that you don't have, that you want, right? They show you things that they can do that you can't do, right? They will lure you in with the idea that you can have this, you can have more. Here's the goal. They put a golden carrot in front of you and they say, this is the goal, right? And then from there, they speak eloquently in order to validate or justify that as being the goal. But they start with a fallacy because the goal that they define isn't a solution, right? So the goal that they define is education from an HBCU. How many have been educated from an HBCU? And how many of us are still in the same condition, 100% dependent upon another people, right? They'll say that the goal is to get money. I'm not anti-money. I'm not anti-crypto. I'm not anti any of that. Not at all. I am simply saying that is not the goal. That is the value system that was imposed upon you being accessed by somebody to make you focus on that. I'm telling you, that is not the goal. Billionaires commit suicide. Robin Williams committed suicide. Millionaires commit suicide. So money is not it, is it? No. And in some of the reasons why they do is because they get to that place and they realize it's not. It can't fill the hole. It can't fill it. And the only thing that can is freedom. The only thing that can is to be a free human. How do you get freedom? It's not a subjective. You know, the problem is that, and again, so we see the social media celebrities, we see these people access this value system and then use that value system in order to fleece you and have you following along in this rabbit trail, right? That enriches them, makes them comfortable. You might get something even, but again, it never solves the problem. And so what happens is, I repeat almost verbatim the words of Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Geronimo Pratt, Huey P. Newton, Malcolm X, Noble Drew Ali. I repeat their words. I'm not some wise soothsayer. No. I repeat their words. I repeat what they told us to do. And in doing so, in saying to the masses, we must control our essential requirements, our essential needs, in telling the masses that there is a hierarchy of needs that is common among almost every species on the planet Earth. There is a hierarchy of needs that is common among almost every species on the planet Earth. And so the instruments of our oppression are control of those essential needs. I say these things. This is what Marcus said. Marcus said, any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. What does that mean? Depend upon another race. Does it say depend on them for education, for water, for food, for security, for healthcare, for their supply chains, for their agricultural astuteness? Does it say that? Does it stipulate that? No, Marcus said any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. So that's essential needs. If you listen to what Elijah Muhammad said that there was going to come a time when the white man couldn't carry himself, and where would that leave you? He said this, right? Noble Drew Ali, Malcolm X, Geronimo Pratt, Huey P. Newton, all of our, Frederick Douglass, all of our leaders in the last 100, 150 years have all said the same thing. They have all said that the key to our permanent solution lies in the control of our essential needs. If a man controls your water, he controls your life. He controls your baby's life. So get all the money in the world. But if when you get that money, you don't have a well within your own house and a filtration system within your own house, you're counting on someone else to always be there. And that is what I'm saying. This was so elementary, to remove from a people the ability for them to control their own lives into 72 hours and then do so generationally. So your mama couldn't control it. That man had her water. Her mother couldn't control it. That man had her water. Her mother couldn't control it. And so over time, you lose the ability to do these things for yourself. And now anything that that man gives you is looked at as a great gift, and you thank him. And you go past those essential needs as a solution to your condition, and you will consider anything that they have implanted as more valuable. So when I speak, the majority of people think it's subjective. I end up in conversations where I'm like, yo, you're actually debating with me whether or not life is more relevant than money, and you can't hear it. And your leaders and your talkers and your celebrities will never say that. Go look at Soledad O'Brien, what she's talking about. Is she talking about freedom? Go look at your leaders. Go look at your talkers. Are they talking about freedom? Are they talking about a permanent solution? No. What they are doing is they are living out the program that was put in place long ago. The assumption is there's just always going to be water. And since my mother and her mother and her mother and her mother had to have no hand in controlling their own water, I'm not going to think about it. And as long as you don't think about it, you're someone's slave. As long as somebody has control over your essential needs, then they have control over your life into the next 72 hours. And I have my brothers and sisters argue with me. It is the most unbelievable thing. I repeat the words of Malcolm X, and they attack me while wearing a Malcolm X t-shirt. This is just such an interesting dynamic at work, because mine and ours will fight against that truth. And what is that truth? What is it that I'm describing? Is it painful? Is it a painful truth? Is it an impossible task? No, I'm simply suggesting that the way that a chattel slave was produced was through controlling their essential needs, thereby controlling their life into the next 72 hours. So how do you remove that control? You control your own essential needs so that you can control your life into 72 hours. What is wealth? What is wealth? What does money do for you? What wealth does is it allows you to continue to exist at a given threshold, right, of comfort into time, right? So the more wealthy you are, the more you can assure you're not going to be evicted for the next 30 years, right? You can count on your food, clothing, shelter, water, healthcare for the next 30 years. That's what wealth is. Well, what has happened is they've injected this intermediary called money. And so we no longer look at the direct relationship between our lives and being able to ensure that over time. Instead, we look to an intermediary, and the only method that we can imagine to exist within the next 72 hours, the only wealth we speak to is rooted in the dollar, and we forget the only thing that that dollar is doing is providing for us the essential needs that keep us alive. And we're sitting here. We're in this condition, doing this, and listening to these minstrels suggest that this is intelligent, right? Forgetting that the only thing that that dollar does is buy you the essential needs that allow you to live. But why wouldn't you just produce your own essential needs? Why wouldn't you just produce your own essential needs thereby eliminating the need to make another man solvent. You're the underpinning resource that keeps America going. You are. When you get up, they're going to milk you like a cow. Everything you do, everything you use for the benefit of your having been trafficked to North America and be here, they will milk you every second you live. We used to say it was a joke. They're gonna, if they could tax air, they would. They already have. You just don't realize it. You just don't realize it. Them streets that you're walking on, that public transportation, them public schools, all of these things, you're paying for this, right? You're paying for air. And every second that you live, you're paying white supremacy to be alive. You're paying them. We're paying them. And you got these talkers, and they're convincing you, yo, look at the bag, get the bag, sell something, smile, dribble, take a stand, let them hear your voice. Let's be heard. Let's let that, what part of your humanity exists any longer? What part of your humanity exists any longer, separate and outside of another man and the context that they have placed on you? You're a human being. Why is it that by default, we defer to someone else as an authority? Why? Why is it that you will hammer your children into a form where they will, their entire lives, serve another man? Why? What is the instrument? What wizardry must exist before you can't see this? Huh? What has to happen before you can't see this? Again, I'll restate it. What they did was they took people who were completely responsible and capable of controlling their own lives into the next 100 years, 1,000 years, left alone. Those Africans that they brought from Africa would have still been there providing for themselves. Left alone, the natives that were on this continent would have been still providing for themselves. But what these people did was they came and they took those people and they put them into a little box and they forced them to be dependent upon someone else for their essential needs. They did it for generations, and the children that were born no longer had the skill to be able to keep themselves alive, making them 100% dependent upon a master. And that is the relationship that exists to this day. To this day. And your talkers and leaders and politicians and social media talkers and all of them subscribe to that, and they reference that value system within you. But nobody says, wait a minute, it was essential needs that produced a slave. It will be essential needs that will make a man free. This is rocket science. And the reason it sounds like voodoo, the reason it sounds like wizardry, is because the value system has been so deeply seated within the masses of the people, within them. And I'm not blaming you, man. It's been seated in me. 100% of the beings that you will ever encounter are a sum total of their experiences and those circumstances which brought them into being. It is not possible for any of us to have a mother and a father that were not impacted by this abhorrent system, and their parents 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 going back 20 generations. So there's not one of us. I don't care how he calls himself. I don't care what WWF name he takes. I don't care how much money he has. I don't care what he has done. He is impacted by the history that produced him. And the history that produced us was abhorrent. It was not natural. And so each and every one of us They're elements of that unnatural system. What we've done is we've learned to cope, to try to turn the unnatural as comfortable as we possibly can. But there is a difference between winning and losing slowly and comfortably. There is a difference between these two things. And there is singularly one solution. Is it because I'm saying it? No. Is it because it's my belief system or is it any of that bullshit that you're listening to these talkers say? No, it's because it's the fact. If you have a lion in a cage and that lion will die if you don't give it food and water, if you give that lion food and water, he will soon forget how to hunt and look to you for the food and the water. And that is what holds us right now. So I get into conversations, I get into conversations, and the common mindset isn't able to even grasp that reality. They can't even fathom that what I'm saying is not subjective. If it is true for every species, it's true for you too. What will make you free or slave is control of your essential needs. I started the Ledge Group. Do you know how many members of the Ledge Group don't understand this? They come at me upset and angry because they're holding on to a value system that has been forced on us. And so they come to me because they didn't understand it from the beginning. My words have never changed. I've always said these same things. But they come to me and try to use the value system that was imposed on them and say, but wait a minute, what about this? You forgot what we were doing, didn't you? You forgot what we were doing. And so we find ourselves in this same place. And every generation of children that is born into this and does not come to the conclusion that their essential needs are the instruments of their oppression will be marching, will be whining, will be complaining, will be begging another man. You know, just because somebody is your enemy doesn't mean that they're lying with everything that they say. Just because someone is your enemy, in fact, your enemy is more likely to tell the truth because he's not looking to spare your feelings. It's your friends that are fucking lying to you. It's your friends that are lying to you. Your enemy's not lying. And if you listen, go to the Stormfront website. Look at what they say about you. Look at what they say about your children. Try it the fuck on. Try it on. You're in their cities, whining, begging. Oh, but we built the city. Yeah, but you don't control your own water. Yeah, you built the city. That's awesome. But you're still going to massa for water like has been done for 400 years. Stop with the excuses and the victimhood bullshit. There's a man that controls your everything. And instead of you lifting a single hand to take control for yourself, you're going and you're marching. Oh, we should start our own basketball league because they don't like us. Oh, you sound so whiny. What man on the planet Earth is going to respect you? This is why you have white men pointing out Meek Mill's bust and saying directly to your woman, is this your king? Is this your king? He depicts you as a hoe. He depicts you worse than what we used to depict you 400 years ago. This is your king? Look around. Look around. Go ahead to those racist websites and look at what they say about you. And then take a look. Take a look at what our women have to settle for. These excuse-making, boot-licking, bush boogies, right? This is what our women have to settle for. Right? Because that's what's there. This is what's normal. The value system is so poisoned. Instead of being a man, these cowards would turn and say, it's because of the woman. It's because of the woman that you a punk and can't fight your enemy. Is that right? Because of your woman and what she did? These excuse making talkers, again, have been inculcated with a value system that is poison and against their own interests and humanity. And it is very hard to see outside of that. I simply suggest that while it is a part of the culture to say Malcolm X, to say Huey P. Newton, to say Noble Drew Ali, to shout out Elijah Muhammad because it looks good, to shout out Marcus Garvey, right? To shout out Frederick Douglass. Instead of all of that, read. Read what they said. Distill it into a single sentence. What is that man saying? What did Marcus say? What did Malcolm? The men lived and died to say it. And now it's a part of the culture and you just want the shirt. You haven't read their words. You want the shirt. You want to shout it out to be a part of the culture, but you didn't read what they said. You didn't distill what they said. It is mind-boggling when I ask the conscious community, what was the lesson learned from Black Wall Street? What was the lesson learned from Black Wall Street? Do you know what the answers are that I hear? I don't want anybody to answer it. Please don't put it there. Don't put it there because the answers that I hear, what was the lesson learned from Black Wall Street? I hear, number one, we need our own army. Okay. Number two, generally, there's only one. We needed our own army is what the number one answer when I ask, what was the lesson learned from Black Wall Street? We need our own army. But if your army depends on their opponent for water, what do you have? You have a bunch of people in tinfoil hats walking around that sound good. If your army must depend on their opponent for ammunition, what do you have? You have no army. If your army must depend on the supply chains of their enemy in order to eat, then you have no army. So we don't even do the lessons learned on the most recent of events. We don't ask, what was the lesson, right? And so because of that, again, Marcus Garvey, you can shout it out. You can say, you're going to open up the Marcus Garvey Institute for Education. But Marcus Garvey said, any leadership that depends upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. So if you're building up an you're building an educational facility under dependency, then you are 100% and diametrically opposed to what that man said. Did you read the words? Did you distill what that man said? Can you distill? I'm asking for a simplified version. The lifetime of Malcolm X. Can you sum it up? What is the action item? What did he say to do? Summarize Elijah Muhammad and his lessons. Forget the man and your emotional connection. Forget the emotional connection. Summarize what that man said to do. Summarize Noble Drew Ali's words. Summarize Huey P. Newton's words and efforts. Summarize Frederick Douglass's words. See, because if you've only been shouting them out and you never read their words, this is why you don't understand. This is why when I speak, people are resisting, they're debating. And so it leads me to believe, and I'm pretty confident in saying that if Frederick Douglass was walking in 2021, you people would cancel him. If Marcus Garvey was actually here and speaking to these brain dead bush boogies, they would cancel him. If Malcolm X were actually here, for me to repeat the words of these men and meet as much resistance as I do, lets me know A, you never read nothing that they said, and B, if they were standing here in front of you, you would crucify them. I am aware of this. I am aware of this. And still, I do that work. You will see. Instead of talking, I'm not going to build a platform. You ain't never going to hear me say, subscribe, like me, subscribe, subscribe, hit like. The fuck out of here, man. I don't need you to like me. I'm not here for your like. What you feel about me personally does not matter unless you come within the squared circle, and then we'll manage it. What you think about me does not matter, right? I'm not one of those that has been doing what I have been doing because, see, understand why these movements fail. Understand why these movements and efforts that you see today launched fail. It is because your Roland Martin has compromised himself. He has to have in order to be able to make that money. He's got to be middle of the road. He can't be 100. You hear me? Because he's paid by them. So this makes him weak. When you look at all of your leaders, they are playing a game. And that game requires that they make money from you. You have to listen to them. They're going to continue to post content and post content and post content, and they're going to try to be relevant, and they're going to bring up provocative talking points, and they're going to debate, and they're going to influence the debate, and they're going to push it. And the more drama, the more money, and the longer they can be comfortable while slowly losing. I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I don't count on your money. The reason that these people lose, the reason that these efforts fail is because you're taking your money and not paying your electric bill, and you're sending it to these charlatans, and they're taking that money and they're paying their electric bill. This is not freedom. This is revolutionary scented candles in order to make one smell good. But the truth, the truth is, I don't need your likes. You'll never hear me say subscribe. You'll never hear me say like me. I don't give a fuck if you like me. You ain't supposed to like me. If you can't separate the man from a truth, then perish. The antelope, that when he hears one of the other antelopes say, run, says, wait a minute, man, this is some good damn grass right here. I'm enjoying what who are you to tell me to run? Guess what? He's dinner. He's dinner tonight. So again, if you need to like me in order to be able to take what I'm giving to you freely, in order to save your own generations, that makes you a fool. That makes you a fool. It doesn't matter who's saying it. Again, I said, go look at Stormfront. Go look at what the white people are saying against you. And if you try it on and that shit is true, then do something about it. And I mean, do something more than complain and whine all day. Do you know how pathetic you look with every single thing that happens? Oh my God, they don't love us. They're not going to take care of us. Oh my God, he's proven it again that he doesn't like me. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We're going to vote them out. We're going to make sure they hear our voices. We're going to be heard. We're going to march. We're going to do all of these different things, but we're never going to take responsibility for ourselves. We're never going to define the instruments of our oppression and address that, right? Man, look, I don't know why I continue to waste my words. Again, I give them to you freely. There's nothing that I will gain from your understanding what it is that I'm saying to you. There is nothing that I can possibly gain. I'm not asking you for shit. I don't need anything, right? Man, look. So if you fail to recognize the instruments of your oppression, then you will spend a lifetime, and your children will spend lifetimes and lifetimes existing within the context of a value system that was imposed on them. And it's an elementary solution. It's elementary. It's a basic hierarchy of needs. So again, I address you. I give you this freely. You, as I said, I don't care if you like me or not. I gave you a gift. You use it or you don't use it, right? At the end of the day, you see me. You see 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have afforded myself the ability to spend more time on producing freedom than most people will have. I've afforded that to myself. So when you see me, nobody paid for me to go to Africa. I did. Nobody paid for the equipment that we use to put on solar workshops. I did. I got no foundations behind me. No, I spend my time, my breath, my efforts, and in each and every one of them, they are focused on controlling essential needs for ourselves. So I'll never be popular. Why? Because I ain't got no pasties on my chest. I'm not using algorithms. I'm not doing none of that bullshit. I'm not asking you, I'm not looking for validation. You can't cancel me. I can't be fucking canceled, right? So because of that, I don't have to dance. I don't have to be nice. I don't. And as a result of that, that's why I'm not looking for your validation. I'm giving you something. You ain't got to like me. I gave you something just now. Again, come lay, stay, or pray. It makes no difference. Each day we spend in the effort to control our own hospitals and healthcare, to control our own water, to control our own food, to control our own housing and building, to control our own lands, to control our own security, to control our own utilities. Look all over the planet Earth and you see that's exactly what I'm doing everywhere I go, to control our own. So I ain't got no time to debate you. I got no space for that. I ain't gonna be in your symposiums. I'm not gonna be doing that shit. Let's have a conversation on race. What the fuck? I'm not gonna do none of that, man. I'm working. I got work to do. You hear me? I'm not gonna be doing none of that. Let's dig some wells. You want to do that? Put a tool in your hand and find me. Let's spread solar proliferation through our people. Let's teach them how to filter water for themselves. Let's teach them how to survive into 72 hours based on their own knowledge and wits. You want to give somebody something? I could give you $1,000. It'll be gone tomorrow. But if I teach you how to filter water, you'll have it forever and you'll be able to survive. So what's more valuable? These clowns selling you slave trinkets? Huh? That's valuable, you think? Hey, like I said, come lay, stay, or pray. We doing this, right? We will control our own. We will. And the question is, how many will not? Hey, I'm going to speak on it. The Georgia Guidestones that I showed the other day, the Stonehenge of America, which says that the human population must be kept in balance with nature, and that it should be a number of about 500,000, I forget the number. I think it says 500,000. It should be the total number of people on the planet. Yo, look around. Look around at how much wasted skin there is. How many are poisoning themselves and each other? Look around. I'm not necessarily in disagreement with that sentiment. There's a whole lot that ain't doing nothing but poisoning each other. You're not spreading energy. You know you're a battery. That's all you are, is a battery. And you have the capacity to recharge absolutely every other battery that you come in contact with. We are portable charging stations, right? If you look at solar power, it cells, solar cells. Everything that you're seeing is based on you, right? It's your cells, okay? And you convert that sun's energy into energy and you have life, okay? You're charging stations for each other, right? You have the ability to make each and every single one around you a superpower. Each and every single one, with the way that you spend your energy. And yet, somebody else owns our value system. Somebody else owns our value system. So you don't value that. You don't realize that every man, woman, and child that you interact with, you could turn them into a superpower, but you withhold it. You don't know it. You don't know. That's all you are, is a battery, a charging station for each other. And if we begin to charge each other, we become more powerful, but we don't get it. We don't get it. We're selling that for 30 pieces of silver. We're enamored with Jay-Z's money and Beyonce's money, and this one's got a show, and this one has a bus, and this one has, and this shit got us, right? And as long as it got us, they got us, right? And your parents will pay them to be born, and your children will pay them for you to die. And it will go on generation after generation until one, just one, reads the words of Frederick Douglass. Read what he said. Read the speeches of Marcus Garvey. Read what Elijah Muhammad said. Read what Noble Drew Ali said. Read what Malcolm X said. Read the direction of these people. And if you did, don't debate me. If you did read those words, you would be living differently. There would be a clear solution. You would know there is a clear solution. It's not subjective. It's not his answer, mine. No. If I have a shark and that shark cannot hunt for himself, cannot provide himself his essential needs, that shark becomes my slave. I throw you in the motherfucking tank, open up the shark cage, you're it. Right? That's my shark. That's how it's done. And that's how it's been done to all of our generations. And we can't see this. Bruh. Again, you don't have to like me. Fuck subscribe. I don't need your subscription. Okay? I gave you something. Use it or not. All right? Peace.